As I'm sure you know, indie developers wear a lot of different hats. And one of the hats that I am particularly bad at is making sure to share development updates on a regular basis. I know that I need to do this, but when I sit down, I usually have writer's block, and eventually I give up and I go play video games. So I thought that it would be an interesting experiment to see whether I could use GitHub Agent Workflows to have an agent automatically analyze my commits over the last, 2 weeks or a month, and then write a draft devlog. Now, I did not expect this devlog to be 100% perfect, but really my goal was to get it good enough so that I could do an editorial pass and not be stuck at that first draft writer's block stage. So in this video, I'm going to walk through the basics of agent workflows and GitHub Actions, and then I'm going to show you how I use the GitHub Copilot CLI to make an agent workflow. So before we get into the agent stuff, I want to do a quick primer on GitHub Actions because agent workflows are actually built on top of them. A GitHub action is just automation that runs on GitHub servers. You'll define it in a YAML file inside your repo under the .github/workflows folder, and then it fires when a trigger happens. Now, a trigger could be a push to your repo, a pull request being opened, a cron schedule, or you can even trigger these manually. Inside the workflow, you have jobs, and inside jobs, you have steps. A step is, just a single thing to do, like check out your code, run a script, call an API. But it's good to know that these will all run in order top to bottom. A GitHub Agent Workflows will take actions a step further by letting you add an AI agent to the mix. A big difference between the two is the file format. Instead of writing everything in YAML, you will write your workflow in Markdown. The Markdown file has two parts. The top section is the YAML front matter, which is essentially your GitHub action. The new part is what comes below the front matter, a Markdown body where you write instructions for your AI agent. When a workflow runs, the agent spins up inside a sandbox on a GitHub Actions runner with your repo checked out. It has access to all the tools that you configured in the front matter, but it cannot reach outside the sandbox to take action. So if it needs to create an issue, it'll make a request, and a separate job with scoped permissions will handle the write. GitHub calls these safe outputs, and you declare them in front matter. There are also safe inputs, which are for giving the agent custom tools with controlled secret access. We're not going to cover that, so I'll link to the docs in the description. Setting up agent workflows is pretty straightforward. You need the GitHub CLI installed, and then you can install the agent workflow extension. Navigate to your project and run GHAW init. There is one more setup, which is to create a personal access token so that the agent workflow can authenticate. To do this, you go to your GitHub settings, create a fine-grained pat, and give it the Copilot request permission. Now, one thing that tripped me up is you have to select public repositories when creating the token, even if your repo is private. Come back into the command line, and in your repo, type GHAW secrets set Copilot_GitHub_token. Make sure that your secrets name matches this exactly. From there, you'll be asked to create the secret value, which you should have copied from the last page, and now you're good to go. Rather than generating this from scratch, I'm going to have Copilot help us out. And I'm a big fan of plan mode, so we'll go into plan mode to start. And I have a rather lengthy prompt. But in a nutshell, the first thing that I want to have it do is pull the GitHub Agentic Workflow create MD file that they provide, which gives it the information that it needs to know to actually create one of these in the correct way. For the trigger, I'm going to have it run on a monthly cron schedule, but also support manual dispatch with two inputs, a required synth date and then an optional focus in case I want to have it emphasize something. I'm also going to have a deterministic step, which will use the GitHub API to fetch commits, merged PRs, closed issues, and really everything that the agent needs to go and complete this task. And then with the agent instructions, I have it focusing on 2 to 4 player-facing themes so that it doesn't write a giant novel, and also a lot of language around setting the right tone. I want it to be developers talking to players and not doing the typical AI thing where it talks in marketing languages. I am skeptical that this will work the first pass. It's probably one of those things that's going to have to get refined a few times, but I think it'll be a good start. All right, so it looks like the plan is back. Let's take a look. We can see it's referencing the safe outputs, which is fantastic. It's going to use that to create the issue. So we can see in the to-dos, it's going to also do the GitHub AW compile command, which you must always do after you've written your markdown file before the action will run. This converts it into the lock YAML file that GitHub Actions needs. Okay, this looks good as a first pass. Let's let it build it. All right, let's actually take a look at this file before we run it. We can see here the schedule, cron, and our dispatch. We also see the permissions, and then this is our deterministic step here, which is a pretty long one. Under save outputs, we have the create issue as expected, and it can only do a max of 1. And then here is our agent file. Okay, this looks good. I'm gonna post this on GitHub if you wanna take a closer look. Let's go ahead and run the workflow and see what happens. All right, and it looks like we're done. Took about 5 minutes. Looking at what it did, some of this is accurate, and some of this, it drew some incorrect conclusions too. So, for example, the intro part is pretty accurate. But if I look at the better item interactions, it's talking about my identification system, which is kind of like the traditional role-playing game of having to use identification scroll on an item to see their stats. The description that it has here is completely wrong. Now, this is a good first step, but what I would normally do is pop back over to Copilot and continue to iterate on that agent instruction file until I got it into a good place. I'm not going to do that in this video because that's one of those things that could easily take an hour back and forth iteration, but hopefully this is enough for you to get started making your own agent workflows. And that's pretty much it. Hopefully this gives you a good starting point for thinking about where agent workflows could fit into your own processes or workflows. Now, let me know in the comments if you end up making anything neat. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.